Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 74. Thank you for joining us for Black Entrepreneur Experience. This is where we shine the light on the most successful Black entrepreneurs in the world. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards, and today I am so humbly honored to have with us Abi Togunde. She's CEO and founder of Classy Technology. She said she is known as the local business technology stylist. She is heavy into technology and digital marketing for entrepreneurs. Hi, Abi.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
It is truly my honor. Listen, I have given our audience a very brief bio. I have done so much reading about you. I am so impressed with your bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps? Share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your company.
Awesome. Yeah, I will do. So my name is Abi, as she mentioned, and I reside in Detroit, Michigan. I'm 25 years old, and I started my business, Classy Technology, back when I was in college. Started my business because I was broke as a college student, and I wanted to be able to do something that I knew I was good at. I started technology in the fall of 2014. And I started off actually just building computers and fixing computers for staff members. So fast forward to today, I work with local businesses around the United States right now. My bachelor's degree was in information security from Eastern Michigan University. So I do my degree with what I do day to day, as well as digital marketing also.
Abi, a big push is on STEM and STEAM for those that are really into that whole technology. And that is so crucial for us as African Americans, those from the Black or African diasporas. Do you see a lot of people that look just like you, Abi, that are going into science, technology, engineering, math?
Great question. No, there are not that many Black people that are in STEM. And it's really funny you say that because when I started my program at Eastern Michigan University, I was probably one of maybe 3 or 4 Black people in the entire program. And the entire program was made up maybe 500, 600 people. It definitely made me open my eyes to see, wow, there's not many of us in this industry. What I actually did was I volunteered at a Digital Divas conference for young Black women in the area. And so I taught a couple courses there to the young girls. They were in middle school. I taught them about STEM and kind of try to introduce them to STEM as a whole so they could kind of see the career opportunities in the future that they could actually have.
What motivated you to go into that field?
Motivated me, I would say, originally when I first started private college, I felt like I was just going to go and major in business. I've always had like a passion for technology. Like when I was younger, if you ask my mother, she'll always say that I was the person that like broke the computers and fixed them and the person who would try fixing all the little tech toys in the house. But I knew I always had interest in technology. So when I came to college, I started off at a school, at a private college, and they didn't have a technology program. So I was planning on getting my bachelor's business and then getting my master's in the technology. But when I saw the program at Eastern Michigan, where it offered a technology program that I could mesh with business, I just knew that it was it. That was it for me. So I would probably say my willingness to, my eagerness for like fixing problems and like coming up with like creative solutions to issues, that definitely drove me to go into the technology.
Tell us about your ideal client. Who is an ideal client and what can they expect from you if they contact Classy Technology?
Yeah, my ideal client is an offline business. And when I say offline, I mean a business that depends on like foot traffic. So like in the downtown area of a city, such as a restaurant or like a bakery or companies like that. So my ideal client would be someone who operates a business that relies on foot traffic, more than likely between the ages 35 maybe to 65 or so. Someone who to focus on running their business and they don't really want to spend the time to actually handle the technology. And they shouldn't have to because they need to focus on their business. Someone who needs consistent customers to come into their store in order to make money. So those are my ideal clients because I'm able to quickly get people in the door for them and get them a rush of customers or clients. And they're usually really great to work with because they're really hands off with it. And they definitely trust me to come up with creative ways to get people to want to visit their restaurants or their organization.
What is a technology software that would streamline business operations? I know you deal a little bit in that.
Yes. In regards to streamlining operations, when I say that, I'm all about simplicity. And so for a lot of businesses, sometimes they're using either outdated software or pieces of software that don't work together. What I would recommend in terms of a software that can streamline their operation is a CRM, a customer relationship management software. So for example, I have a few clients and they run like clothing stores. So like in the boutiques, when a customer comes in, typically they're just browsing around, they just leave. So what I usually recommend to those clients is make sure that you gather your potential customers' information so you don't lose out on a potential sale. So what I do is I help them set up customer relationship management software that when someone enters their store or their online store, that they can either get their email address or their phone number. And then once they do that, they're in their pipeline. So basically just a way to make sure that once you get a lead's information, you're able to put that in the software. That software will track that lead for you up until the time when they become an actual sale for you.
I know that you may deal with a lot of like mom and pop businesses, or maybe you deal with medium or large size businesses, and you can talk to us in reference to that. I'm hearing a great deal when you think of brick and mortar, a store where needing foot traffic, artificial intelligence. How much are you getting into that, or is that like over the head of your customers, your current client base?
It definitely depends on the client base. So that's a great question. I do use artificial intelligence in regards to the digital marketing portion of what I do. So for example, for some of my clients, a hair salon. So like a local hair salon, I use some artificial intelligence software. It's basically tracking what people in the area are doing in their trend. So let's say there's a woman who gets her hair done every Saturday, like no matter what, every Saturday she makes it to the salon. The software that I use for artificial intelligence can kind of like track her movements if she's been by the salon before and if she's checked in at a location nearby. So what I do sometimes is I use the software to be able to determine if individual is going to be in the vicinity already of where my potential client is, and we can target that client using ads. So artificial intelligence, regardless of the size of a business, in regards to digital marketing, we can use it to definitely bring awareness to businesses.
That will move us, Abby, into our next question about generating high converting leads for businesses. Talk to us about that and how you can help clients, because that's the bottom line, why people are in business. Yes, they're passionate about it, but they want to be passionate and make a profit.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's a great question. When I sit down with the new client, my first question for them is, what is your objective? Who is your ideal client? Just like the question you asked me earlier, like who's your ideal client? Who are the people that you want to work with? And so I usually make sure that I at least get an overview from the client on who they want to work with. Are they millennials? Are they different age range? I find out those details. And then what I do is I also ask the client what they feel like they have to offer their ideal customer. Is it your product or is it the experience? Because a lot of people don't realize, like if you have a clothing store, it's not necessarily only the pieces of clothing that you're selling the overall experience. So I try to get out of the client, try to understand what it is that they really want to sell the customer. Because if the customer has an idea of that client being the number one clothing store because they treat people very well when they go in, that will be their reputation, and that will be part of the reason why they're successful. So I really help them target that profile client. And then what I do is I go ahead and create campaigns. So the major way to actually generate a high converting lead would be to give your ideal client something that's irresistible. And it sounds a little corny, but it comes to giving someone like an irresistible offer. For example, like a hair salon. Women love to get their hair done. They love to get pampered. So if you're offering like a free service or like a free shampoo or something that's going to save that person money and make them feel good, that's what you offer to get people in the door. And then you upsell. So what I do is I always work with my clients to create an irresistible offer that we know people are going to respond to and they're going to love. What we do after we create the profile for their ideal customer, then we go ahead and create that irresistible offer. And then we go ahead and using Facebook ads or whatever social media platform we decide to go to, we pay for ads. And then in our ad, we put that irresistible offer. And then we target that ad towards the individuals that we wish to reach. So once we do that, people start clicking and asking questions, and then they get the free coupon. So those are the key ways by offering them something irresistible. And then when they actually do show up, when they get that irresistible offer, you have to close the deal. And I always tell people it's not enough to just get someone in the door of your business. It's cool if they walk in and they say hello and they get that free item, but you have to sell them the experience so they want to buy more. Because everything with sales is psychological. It's all about how you make people feel. So I always tell my clients, I can help you with getting people in your door. I can get you 100 leads, but once those 100 leads walk into your store, you need to make sure that you woo them, you treat them well, and you make them feel like this was the best decision they've made. And that is how you get a high converting lead and you turn them into an ongoing customer.
I can hear someone, their brain is going and they're going, Abby, this sounds amazing. How can I hire Abby to help me? And one of the things that we kind of chatted about was prior to the interview is about the difference between what to outsource and what you should do DIY. Why don't you share with our audience, Abby, about your strategy for that?
Yeah, and that's a great point. In business, when you do want to use any type of technology system to market your business, my rule of thumb is if it's going to take you longer than an hour to learn, then outsource it. Because there are going to be way more important things that a business owner can do than to spend days and days trying to master how to run these targeted ads, how to create the website where the lead is going to go to. I would say with like do-it-yourself type of project, rule of thumb is an hour. And if it's something where you're pulling your hair out or you're stressed out and you just think that it's just over your head, go ahead and outsource it to a professional who you know can get you results. When it comes to anything with technology systems and digital marketing, it's always going to take a little bit of time. But time is money when you're in business. And if time is money and you're spending so much time with trying to figure it out, then it's going to be a little difficult. So I always just tell people that point where you feel like you're doing too much, definitely outsource it to a professional.
Abby, talk about that aha moment that you personally knew that your business was going to be successful.
At my college graduation. The day before my college graduation, I mentioned that I started when I was in college. And the day before, I got a local business in the area who had like 4 locations. I signed them as a client. And I was so excited because it was my first like larger client. And before I was just kind of doing it part-time on the side. I didn't really treat my business like it was a business. I treated it like it was a hobby. But I realized that since I was graduating, I needed to graduate my mindset as well. So I went out and I actually went door to door to these businesses. I did calls to every business in town. And I knew that someone was going to see the work that I was doing as valuable and that they were going to actually want to work with me. When the day before I graduated, when I was able to close that contract with that new client, I told myself like, wow, this is going to work out. Not that I have a problem with like corporate jobs. I'm very creative and I like to kind of go with the flow sometimes. I was very excited. And at that moment, walking across the stage for graduation, I was like, I got this. I know that this is going to work out and this is what I'm going to put my all to.
How did your parents respond in reference to you doing your business full time opposed to not going into corporate America or even to another small business to work?
Well, because when I was in my undergrad years, I worked for a corporate company for about 5 years or so. So before I graduated, I was already working working for a corporate company. And I kept mentioning to my parents from time to time, like, I really want to go full time. I really want to go full time. My parents are really big on like education, making sure that you have a solid job and a great foundation. And I know they were a little worried and a little weary. They definitely were, and it's totally fine. At the same time, they encouraged me, and they just told me, make sure that when you make a decision to go full time, or, you know, you're making that risk, just make sure that you plan accordingly. Make sure you save money, make sure that you budget, make sure that you have a degree so you're fine, but also just make sure that you cover your bases. They were very supportive. My family is Nigerian. In their culture, it's very strict and very serious. And I wasn't going into an industry like a doctor or a lawyer, so my field really wasn't something that they were used to already. So when I told them I was going to go full time, I know they kind of were a little worried about me, but they always supported me, so I definitely appreciate that.
In your family, do you have a lineage of entrepreneurs?
No, I am the first.
What is the biggest achievement so far in business, Abby?
My biggest achievement so far, I would say it's Nick Cannon, the actor, Nick Cannon / rapper. His team hired me to do a website for them for their Wild and Out tour. And I've always been a huge fan. Typically, I work with local businesses, but from time to time, there'll be like other people who reach out. When they reached out to me, I was like, oh my God, really? So I was very excited. And so at that moment, I was like, wow, I can pretty much do anything. And when I asked them, the team, like how they found me, they told me that it was on Instagram, on the Explore page on Instagram. And I was like, really? Wow. And so that really made me very excited. And then from there, that grew my following on Instagram as well, because people started noticing who I was. So that was really exciting to me. I definitely consider that an achievement.
And what is the Explorer page on Instagram? I've not heard of that.
Oh, yeah. So when you're on Instagram, you'll have like the four buttons on the bottom. The second button that looks like magnifying glass, that is what we call the Explore page. And so that is where any top post on Instagram or any top post that might be something that Instagram thinks you'd be interested in will appear on there. So like when I go on there, I'll see like top posts on different podcasts or different magazines or music videos. So basically from all over the world, it'll just kind of filter based on your interests.
And yours came up on Steve Cannon's page?
Yeah, on Nick Cannon and his team. Mine came up on their page.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Abby, what is one daily or weekly habit that you do consistently that has given you the greatest success?
I would say I meditate, and when I wake up in the morning, I used to check my emails right away and like get on social media, but I really try to master peace. And so in the morning when I wake up, I meditate right away. I relax for a bit, and then I just kind of unwind and think about everything I'm grateful for, and then I write in my grateful journal just everything that's going on. And I just definitely want to start out my day with a sound mind. So for me, that's really helped a lot because business is stressful. It's a little stressful, and I used to let that stress get to me a lot. So I would just be really like anxious all the time, or I'd be stressed out all the time. But I feel like when I start my day off meditating and praying and just in a good zone, then everything works out well for me.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and I was laughing. I was thinking about the question, and I thought about when I had said, instead of Nick Cannon, I said Steve Cannon. I don't even know who Steve Cannon is, if it's a real person. Yet, if Nick Cannon is listening to this, Abby did not make the mistake. I did, and I'm correcting it. You are Nick Cannon and not Steve Cannon. So I wanted to say that. So thanks so much for that. Abby, who are your top 2 influencers, and what lessons do they teach you?
My top 2 influencers would be Greg Maloney. Greg is my mentor, and he's been my mentor since I was like 20 years old. And my other mentor, influencer, is my father. So Greg has taught me pretty much, I would say, a lot of what I know about business. And what's really funny is I met Greg through LinkedIn years ago, and I was following all his posts on LinkedIn because he gave really good tips on like starting a consulting business and starting business and tips on what to do, the systems to use. And so when I was learning, I was taking notes and soaking it in. And so one day I like reached out to Greg, and I'm like, your tips are gold and they really helped me. And so from there we built a relationship, and he was always very helpful. And so anytime I need him, he's there. I've learned a lot from him. He's very successful as an entrepreneur. and is a family man. And so it definitely played a big role in how I simplify my business. Because when I first started business, I was just all over Google looking at every article on do this and do that. And there's so much information out there that I didn't really know where to start. So it was very helpful having a mentor who knew the ropes, who's been there, done that, and who is successful and I look up to in regards to where I want to be one day. He's taught me a lot about business. And then my father is a dean at Spelman, provost at Spelman now. And my dad is really big on education and he loves to travel and he likes to explore the world. And so my father has really taught me a lot about persevering through any situation. My parents are both immigrants from Nigeria. So just knowing their stories and what's taken them to get to the point where they are today makes me feel like I should never have any excuse to not do well or to not achieve my goals. So I really look up to him and I'm very thankful that he has made a way for himself and he's where he is today. So that definitely makes me know that regardless of a situation, you'll always make it through as long as you persevere.
Excellent advice in reference to that.
Hey friends, just a quick hello, hi, howdy. My name is Mary and I'm the host of the Simplifiers podcast. We interview super smart people all over the planet who can take one topic in business or in life and simplify it. Whether it's clean eating, simplified, money mindset, simplified. Sort my life out, Mary? Yep, we can simplify that as well. Give us a listen. Search for the Simplifiers podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And as always, friends, keep things simple.
Abby, you said something when you were talking about your influencer, your mentor, your top 2 influencers, and shout out to your dad. Fathers are so important. And I know sometime in society has a tendency of putting down the male role model, and it is so important. So thanks for shouting out to your dad. And I know that he's very proud of you. I want to talk about your mentor, Greg, and something you talked about, Abby, was an entrepreneur. You're all over the place. And I know this is resonating with someone that is in our audience right now. And it could be the person that is wanting to start as an entrepreneur, not knowing where to go, what to start. What advice would you give them? And I love what you said about Googling and being all over the place and not even having a sense of direction. Where would you tell them to start?
For anyone who is interested in starting a business, I would definitely start with I would probably look up like entrepreneur group on Google. So what I mean is basically I would recommend a mentor or a coach when starting off a business. So I'd probably look up either like mastermind groups for entrepreneurs or entrepreneur coaches. And then kind of like read testimonials and reviews, because I think that when starting a business, you need as much support as you can get. And you do need guidance, because if you don't, you're just going to be going from task to task, system to system. So I think it's really important to have someone who knows what they're doing kind of guide you at first. A coach is, you have to pay for a coach, but for someone a mentor might be way easier. I'd probably recommend people to start there is to kind of like try to seek someone in the industry who you look up to, or just do some research on successful people in your industry. I'm not saying go straight to Oprah, but depending on your industry. However, maybe someone in your local area and maybe try to meet with them for coffee and kind of build that relationship. So that's really where I would start. After that, then once you kind of have some structure, I would probably then recommend buying like a business book. Like Grant Cardone has a lot of business books on how to start. So kind of sticking to 1 or 2 resources instead of going from article to article.
That's one of our questions. What book would you recommend and why?
The book that I would recommend is called 10X. It's called 10X. Basically, it's about 10X your life. So basically, make your life even better times 10. So it's by Grant Cardone. He's a sales wizard, entrepreneur. And so he teaches entrepreneurs and businesses about how to sell and about how to change their mindset so they are very confident when it comes to selling. I think for every business person, they should read that book. Because I'll be very honest with you, I was a very timid and I'm a very relaxed, chill person. That's just my personality. However, I realized that if I'm going to be in business, I really need to work on kind of putting myself out there and actually forcing myself to network, forcing myself to actually learn how to sell, managing time, all of that. I started doing research on successful, entrepreneurs, and Grant Cardone came up. And so he's really big on social media. He has like a YouTube channel, tons of videos, a lot of books. And this book stood out to me because it focuses on how to sell, how to manage your time in business, how to cut distractions, and how to make each of your goals attainable. And what I like about his book is it's not just like a how-to, it gives you action items. So basically, like, if you're doing A, do B tomorrow. So it really outlines exactly what you need to do. So once I read his book, I really put to use everything that he was saying in there. So when it came to sales or it came to time and project management, my entire process changed because I made sure that I wasn't wasting any time and I was getting right down to business. And it just gave me like an aura of confidence. So I definitely recommend that book to anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur or who is an entrepreneur.
Talk to a younger you, Abby. What advice would you give to a younger you?
To a younger me, I would say don't be fearful. Take risks. When I was younger, like I mentioned, I was very timid and very quiet, but I feel like I could have probably done better in school, or I could have moved before graduation or for college. I could have moved out of state if I was willing to take that risk to get out of my comfort zone. So I would definitely tell myself, younger me, to don't be fearful, get out of your comfort zone and take risks.
Abby, what is one valuable lesson you wish you knew before starting your business?
One valuable lesson that I wish I knew was that you should always consult with professionals in another industry if you are not knowledgeable of something. So for example, when it comes to taxes, I am not an accountant by any means. So one mistake that I made was I went on Google and said, how much should I pay in taxes as an entrepreneur or as a business owner? And told me a number and I'm like, okay, the percentage. So I went ahead and did my taxes myself, but I got into a situation where I really wasn't 100% sure. And I didn't consult with an accountant because I thought like, I don't need it. I'm new. I don't want to make the investment. So I definitely say that if you're not comfortable with something and it's not your expertise, spend the money or reach out to someone who can help you to do so. That's definitely one thing that I wish I would have known, is to always make sure to do that.
Absolutely. So what's working well in your business right now?
I would say my lead generation is working really well right now in my business, as well as my client retention. For my lead generation right now, I am at the point where a lot of what I do is automated now. What I did was I have continuous Facebook ads running, Instagram ads running, SEO on Google running. Anytime one of those ads clicks on it, it takes them to a special page on my website, and then they go through the process of signing up with me or booking calls. That's going really well for me because I took the time to really make sure that I automated a lot of my systems. I wouldn't be spending so much time daily doing continuous tasks. Also, for my client retention, that's going really well because what I do is a little different than maybe what some others do. I actually build relationships with every client. A sale is a sale, but at the same time, I try to get to know each client. When I speak to someone who's interested in the services, I actually get to know them, kind of find out their background, what it is they wish to accomplish with their business, and then I kind of strategize with them before even trying to sell them because I want to make sure we're a good fit. With that and me building relationships in my team, also building relationships with my clients at a point where we're kind of like family. I consider my clients to be family. Send holiday cards, we meet up for dinner sometimes, and it's just building that relationship is really important. So that's going really well. And so the retention rate is really high because people feel comfortable and they trust me and my team because they know that we care.
All of your clients are in the Detroit metropolitan area, or do you service any clients virtually?
I work with local businesses nationwide. So yeah, they can be located anywhere. So as long as they're a brick and mortar or they're in a location that requires foot traffic in a city, I work with them.
Abby, how large is your team?
My team is a total of 9 people.
Pretty impressive. So give us 3 truths that you've learned in life or business so far.
The first truth I would say is to always admit when you're wrong. Always acknowledge if you're wrong. If you make a mistake or if you just not know, don't be afraid to admit that. In the past, I was cocky back in the day when I was younger. I didn't like admitting when I was wrong because it made me feel like I wasn't confident. But at this point in my life, I think it's very important to be able to admit when you're wrong and then to learn from that situation and move on. That's number one. Second truth, I would say, might be cliche, but to treat people well. Everyone that you meet, you don't know what people are going through. You don't know their story. And you don't know if the person that you meet could be someone that you need in your life. They could help you. I think treating people well, for me, is something that I think is very important. My parents always taught me to treat everyone with respect. And I think that's something that holds true forever. It definitely should be something to keep in mind. And then lastly, don't be lazy. And for me, that's very important, is to not be lazy. There's a lot to do day to day in your personal life and in business. And I hold true to the fact that I work hard. And I think that as long as you can work hard and you stay on top of what you need to do, you can be successful. So that's what I would say are my three truths.
Let's switch gears, Abby. Talk to us about that worst moment in business. And what was the takeaway?
I would say my worst moment in business would be back when I first started. I made a grave mistake of assuming. You know what they say about assuming? It was one of my first clients. I actually was kind of like learning as I went along. The client, it was a website design for a client. And so the client has never had a website before. And so typically in the web design process, I like to work with my clients. I don't like to just design a website and say, here you go. I like to figure out what they like, what they need, all of that. So the client didn't really have much feedback. He just said, I trust you, kind of just go with the flow. And so he basically was giving me creative freedom. I felt like, okay, awesome. Creative freedom, here I go. So I built a website that I thought was fabulous. But the mistake that I made was I didn't really research his industry. I didn't research his niche. Didn't research his industry. I kind of just did what I thought I wanted. So when I delivered the website to him, he was appalled. That was probably the worst moment. Like he was not very happy. He was very disappointed and he was just like, what is this? That really taught me like, wow, it's not about you in business. It's about your client. Do your research, be thorough. So that was a really low, and I had to refund him everything. And I told him like we weren't a good fit because we were on two separate pages, but I learned a lot from that situation.
Love that story. Thanks for sharing that story. Abby, if someone wrote a book about you today, what would we learn about you that we don't know?
I would probably say that people would learn that I'm not as hardcore as I seem sometimes. Day to day, just being in business and being a woman in business, then being Black in business, you have to have this strong exterior and you have to be very direct, very serious, and you have to be on point at all times. And that's just how it is. And so a lot of times when people meet me, they kind of think that I'm just like all business, super serious, and which is not a problem, but that's the persona I have to give out all the time when I'm in business mode. If there was a book written about me, they would probably learn that I'm a very laid back person, very sensitive. I cry when I watch like Grey's Anatomy and TV shows. Like I have a very soft interior, but they would probably learn that I'm just a mellow person and I love to have a good time, love to travel, and I love to have fun.
You mentioned being Black, female, entrepreneur, young. You didn't say all that. I'm saying that. We had said it at the beginning of the podcast. Tell us if there's a challenge being any of those. I don't want to categorize. And I remember, and the reason I'm posing this question, Abby, is I'm going to ask you a question and what you thought that I didn't ask. And one of the interview questions I asked them, I said, what's a question that you wish that I would have asked you that I didn't? And she said to me, how is it being a female Black entrepreneur? So I didn't want to categorize that as some people, they don't want to be classified as that. You know what I mean? So is there any challenges you see in any of those descriptions of you that you find as a possible hindrance? Or do you find that with you being any of the descriptions or categories or however we want to define that as a positive?
Okay, I'll start with being a woman in business. I would say that I see it as a positive. I don't see it as a hindrance. I do think like being a woman in business, I'm in a male-dominated field. So there are a lot of women who do maybe a few things that I do, but there's not that many. When I go to some trade shows or I go to some conferences regarding business or tech in my industry, I'm usually one of the few women there. At first, especially when I was in college, it was hard for me to kind of get used to that because it was lonely. So it is lonely sometimes being a woman in this industry. So I wouldn't consider it a hindrance because it kind of makes me focus on other things. But that would be maybe one aspect of it, being Black in business. I consider that to be a great thing. Being Black in business in general, I've connected with a lot of people, and I actually received a few grants a few years ago and a scholarship too for that also. So being Black in business, that's been great. And then being young and in business, I would say it's not really a hindrance, but there are times where it is a little difficult. Being a young woman in business, sometimes I'm not taken seriously by either men or just by older individuals in the industry because they look at me and they're like, oh, you look young. How old are you? How long have you been doing this? So sometimes I kind of feel like I have to fight for respect. And I never want to really feel like that, but that's just the reality of it. Sometimes you kind of have to prove yourself. And so once people know that you know what you're doing, then it's respect by default. So I would probably say, based on those, that being young is probably the only thing I can consider a hindrance.
And being young or being in business, how do you actually get to that point? How do you build credibility being young in business and starting out? And I know you had talked about landing that first contract, which I think is huge out the gate. Talk to someone who is at that level, not where you're at in business, and they need to build that credibility. It's almost like fake it till you make it. How do you do that?
That's a great question. I am a firm believer that before you can be in business, you need to have worked a job where you're doing this or something along that line. And I say this because I believe that the corporate job that I had for around 5 years before I went into my business, I believe that definitely set the tone for me, and I learned a lot during that time. So I really recommend people to it doesn't have to be a full-time job, or it could be like a small part-time contract position. But I feel like if you want to go into business for something, you need to see a business that's actually doing something similar so you can kind of learn tips and kind of just see the skills that you need to build before you go into business doing that. Because that helps with credibility a lot. Because I personally can't say that without the corporate job that I had, that I would have all of these skills right now. So I just think it's important for people to make sure that they kind of build that foundation so they do have the references from the job or the contract position. The references are really helpful, as well as making sure that they're there to learn specific skills and to kind of see how the operations are run, because that'll definitely set the tone to how you'll run your business. Because if you see someone successful doing something, you're going to want to take note. So that's really important. And then after that, I would probably recommend for someone to make sure that they take courses, some kind of professional workshop to hone the skills that they're going to use for the business that they plan on running. Because I think professional development is very important as well. You can have all the technical skills in the world, but that professional development needs to be there in order for you to be taken seriously. And so then after that, then I would probably say make sure that either you have a website or articles or blog posts or you're on social media, and just your interactions online these days are really important. So just kind of build yourself that way. And then I think after that, then the contracts and the clients will come because they'll see all the efforts that you put in.
Abi, a big question that a lot of people want to know is about financing your business. And you had mentioned you had worked a job for 5 years, your parents taught you to save, and also you had gotten some grants. And I don't know at what point, and you can clarify that within your business, that you were able to acquire some grants. Talk about how did you finance your business? And I know you said you started out part-time when you were still in school. So talk about that.
Yeah. So with financing my business, basically I used my savings. To be quite honest, since my business I didn't need to have a lot of overhead or anything I needed. I think I started with like $500 just because of the industry that I'm in. I didn't need a whole lot of money to start off. But once I actually decided to go towards towards more of a digital marketing type of standpoint, then that's when, within the first year, that's when I started to apply for grants. And the reason that I wanted a grant was because there were certain technology systems that I wanted that were insanely expensive. And so what I wanted to do was to be able to invest in that software so then I could easily scale my business. To find the grants, all I did was I went on Google and I looked up, grants for women in technology or grants for women in business. And so if you look at those keywords after looking up grants on Google, you'll be able to find some for sure. With that initial $500 and then a couple hundred that I got from the grant, I was then able to invest in the software that I needed. And then from there, that was allowing me to make more money. But also with some of the things that I spent money on in the beginning, I look back on it and I didn't need all of it. So I will say that when it comes to financing your business, if it's going to be a brick and mortar business, of course, you're going to have way more overhead. You're going to have supplies and all of that you need. But if it's not brick and mortar, then it might be a different ball game. But it's very important to make sure that you don't spend unnecessary money. So if there's certain systems or software that you see on Google or you see people saying that you need, do your research to make sure you're not spending unnecessary money. Right now, I'm at the point where my business expenses are like $2 a month and like $400 a year. Because what I did was I made sure that I took my time to learn about the exact systems that I need, not what everyone else is using. And then after that, I just did more research and then a couple things I built myself. So it doesn't have to be that expensive to start a business and stay in business. Just make sure that based on your industry, you just do your due diligence with researching it.
Abby, we've come to the part of our interview, business on the brain. We've come to the part of our interview where it's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions and I'd like you to give us very quick answers. And if there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to pass. You ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
Yes, I am.
The last movie you saw?
Black Panther. It was amazing.
You relax doing what?
I get bi-weekly massages.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Favorite singer is Alicia Keys.
Your favorite dance song?
Bruno Mars, Finesse.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
I'm addicted to sweet potatoes.
Your favorite month?
June, because it's the first month of summer.
Abby, thank you so much for spending time with us on Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, where we shine the light on the most successful Black entrepreneurs. But we would be remiss if we did not allow you to share with our audience what is the best way for our audience to connect with you and to support your business.
Thank you for your time. I would say the best way to connect with me is to visit me on my website, www.classy-technology.com.
Is that also your Instagram, your social media handle? Is it the same?
Yep, my social media is at Classy Technology.
Absolutely. Abby, that's a wrap. We appreciate you. Continue to keep us posted on your success and how we can promote your business moving forward.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Make it a great day.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.